Hello, welcome back to Itsumi Botanicals. Before we begin, I wanted to stress that this video is for educational purposes only. For the processes that I will be describing involve using hazardous chemicals and should only be carried out in controlled, well-ventilated settings with the proper safety equipment. So in tissue culture, you've probably been using sodium hydroxide to adjust your pH, dissolve your plant growth hormones, which still is okay. Today, we'll be exploring another option, potassium hydroxide, its uses, benefits, and discuss a bit of the research, which I will link down in the description below for your viewing. So quickly to summarize the research, there were less instances of sodium toxicity, usually associated with using sodium hydroxide in tissue culture. Before we jump in, it's important again to stress for legal reasons that safety is paramount. Potassium hydroxide can cause burns upon contact with skin or eyes, so it's always important that we wear proper protective equipment or personal protective equipment, like safety goggles, gloves, and a lab coat. We should also be working in a fume hood or at least a well-ventilated area. In my case, I'll be working out of my kitchen with an air circulator or an air or fan circulating the air, as well as an air filter cleaning out the air. So those are the measures that I took for my safety. Again, all you have to do is really read the safety sheets. These point out what you should look out for when you're working with these types of products. And again, remember that the methods discussed here are for educational purposes only. Let's break down the process. So the materials that you'll need: ACS grade potassium hydroxide, a flask, a graduated cylinder, a scale. I measured to 0.001 with a calibration tool next to it, some autoclaved water, and the storage vessels that you're going to be putting your container in, and a label maker. Don't forget gloves and a mask for your personal protective equipment, and a spoon to measure out the product. First, I went ahead and calibrated my scale, ensuring that it measures out to 50 grams. And this is just me verifying that I'm wearing my gloves and my mask. So first, what you're going to want to do is you're going to measure out the appropriate amount of potassium hydroxide that you're going to want to dissolve in your distilled water. In this case, you need to understand the molecular weight of potassium hydroxide. It is 56.1056 grams per mole. Let's break it down a little further. If you're going to be making 1 liter of potassium hydroxide, which is a lot, you would need 56.1 grams of potassium hydroxide flakes. I am making 100 milliliters, which is 10 times less than 1 liter, so I divide 56.1 by 10, and that will give us 5.61 grams of potassium hydroxide to make 100 milliliters of stock solution. I use the 0.001 scale because it's very accurate. I also use it to measure out my stock solutions for my plant growth hormones because it's very accurate. And with plant growth hormones being in the powder form being a little bit more difficult to work with, the 0.001 scale really works out well. I found this guy on Amazon for 20 bucks and it works out great. I have the calibration weight with it, so I ensure that it always works because it is very sensitive. So here you see I measured out to 5.614. Once you are finished with the scale or any of the materials you're using, go ahead and put it away. It helps ensure that your work area remains free and clear of any potential hazards, as well as securely tighten the lid to the potassium hydroxide, as you do not want water to get into it. Once you've decided how much you need to dissolve your potassium hydroxide, you're going to want to pour out anywhere between 50 to 80 milliliters of autoclaved water. And you're going to slowly dissolve the potassium hydroxide by pouring it in. And I'm going to show you what an initial reaction is you want to shake it like that. Don't do that. Grab a spoon, a mixing spoon, and go ahead and stir it to fully dissolve. And then as you pour the rest, you're going to notice that there's going to be a reaction that occurs. It is going to produce some vapor. This is the reaction taking place. Once fully dissolved, you're going to pour this reacted potassium hydroxide into the graduated cylinder, and you're going to measure it out to 100 milliliters and then pour it out into one of your storage vessels. Now that we've covered the basics in synthesizing potassium hydroxide, let's talk about its role in tissue culture. Because you may be asking yourself, why should I update my processes? Well, I'm glad you asked. So here's how potassium hydroxide fits into tissue culture. First, you can use it to essentially dissolve your plant growth hormones, which I will link a video of me making 6-BAP down in the description using potassium hydroxide. You can also use it for pH adjustment. So in tissue culture, the media requires a specific pH range. So to support cell division and differentiation, potassium hydroxide can be used to raise the pH of the culture medium. It also provides a consistent supply of nutrients. As many of you know, potassium is a key macronutrient for plant cells. So by adding potassium hydroxide, you're not only adjusting the pH, but you're also supplementing the medium with potassium ions, which will help in enzyme activation and overall cellular function. You can also use it to sterilize and clean. Due to its caustic nature, potassium hydroxide is also used in some cleaning protocols to remove organic residues from glassware or other equipment used in your tissue culture lab. So that's just an added bonus. The last thing you want to do is label your containers to ensure you remember what products are in what. In this case, we made 1N potassium hydroxide stock solution, 100 milliliters, in 2 50 milliliter vessels. And some bonus content here, guys, is I'm going to show you how to make 0.1N stock solution of your potassium hydroxide. And all this is a watered down version of the potassium hydroxide. You can use this as a way to slowly raise the pH of your culture media. So in this case, we're going to pour 10 milliliters of 1N potassium hydroxide into our graduated cylinder and then fill the rest up with 90 milliliters of autoclave distilled water. And we're going to go ahead and pour that into our new containers. And again, don't forget to label these. What I use this for is to, again, slowly raise the pH level of my media. It ensures that you don't go too far too fast because the 1N solution is pretty strong. So this is just my way of making it less strong. Before we wrap up, a few additional final tips. When adjusting the pH in your media, always use a calibrated pH meter. And you want to add the potassium hydroxide gradually and stir well to ensure uniform distribution using a magnetic stirrer. Second, you want to keep records of your preparation steps, measurements, and observations. If you find a way that works, you want to be able to replicate those conditions. And always refer to established protocols specific to your experimental needs. Potassium hydroxide does play a small role in these protocols and is often finely tuned, so any deviation can impact your results. So to summarize, today we covered what potassium hydroxide is and its basic properties, the safety measures needed when working with these types of chemicals, and a simple way to synthesize potassium hydroxide. Lastly, we discussed how potassium hydroxide is used in tissue culture for pH adjustment, nutrient supplementation, and equipment cleaning. So remember, whether you're in the lab synthesizing chemicals or optimizing your tissue culture protocols, safety and precision are your best tools. I do this in my home. Again, guys, thank you so much for watching. I hope this video helped demystify both the production of potassium hydroxide and its practical applications in tissue culture. If you found this content useful, please give it a thumbs up, share your thoughts or questions below, and subscribe for more videos. Stay safe in your lab or your home, and I'll see you in the next video.